Carvana promised the future of car buying. 8-story vending machines, no-hassle picks, and a stock price that rocketed past Ford during the pandemic. But behind that futuristic glass was a house of cards, one that crashed by $79 billion in a year. Today, insiders say you can buy a 2022 SUV for less than its auction price because Carvana is liquidating just to survive. As a former employee put it, we're offloading cars at a loss if buyers only knew why. How did Carvana go from unbeatable disruptor to desperate fire sale? And what does it mean for the entire car industry? The real story starts now. 8 stories of glass and steel rising above the highway, lit up like a beacon in the night. That was Carvana's pitch to America. Car buying as spectacle. Step inside, insert a giant silver coin the size of a dinner plate, and watch as a machine plucks your car from the stack and delivers it to you. The first vending machine opened in Nashville in 2015, holding 30 cars, each one a promise that this was a new era. No salesman, no haggling, just pure convenience. Shop from your phone, pick your car, and skip the dealership altogether. On launch day, Ernest Garcia III stood in front of the tower, grinning, selling not just cars, but the idea that buying one should feel like winning a game show. The vending machine wasn't just a gimmick. It was a billboard you could walk into, a physical symbol of everything Carvana claimed to be: transparent, easy, and above all, different. Ads promised no pressure shopping, 7-day returns, and the kind of customer service you'd never find on a dusty lot. Early buyers raved about the process. No paperwork headaches, no backroom financing tricks, just a key and a wave. For a while, it worked. Word spread fast. In cities across the country, the towers popped up like futuristic monuments, each one a selfie magnet, each one a reminder that Carvana was rewriting the rules. Ernie Garcia III became the face of the brand, charismatic, relentless, always pitching the dream. He called it a revolution, a way to put the customer in control. Internally, the company doubled down on the show. Launch promos promised $500 off your first purchase, or free delivery within 100 miles. The message was clear: skip the old way, join the future. For buyers burned out by dealership games, it was irresistible. People drove in from hours away just to drop the coin and watch the machine work its magic. But the spectacle did more than move metal. It built trust, or at least the illusion of it. If you could see your car before you bought it, if the process was as smooth as ordering pizza, why worry about the details? The vending machine made it easy to forget the fine print, the back-end paperwork, the question of what happens after the show. For a while, nobody was asking. The towers were busy, the coins kept dropping, and Carvana was the brand everyone wanted to believe in. The future looked bright, and the old car lot looked ancient by comparison. Used car prices didn't just rise, they exploded. By spring 2021, the Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index was up 54% year over year, hitting a record $223. That meant a typical used car cost thousands more than it had just 12 months earlier. Supply chains were still tangled, new cars were stuck at the factory, and buyers had nowhere else to turn. Carvana's online showroom became the main event. While dealerships scrambled for inventory, Carvana's website was flooded. Shoppers could scroll through thousands of cars, get approved for financing in minutes, and schedule delivery without ever shaking a hand or setting foot in a sales office. The timing was electric. Americans flush with stimulus cash, stuck at home, and desperate for a safer way to buy a car, poured into the market. Carvana's sales volume soared. In 2021, the company sold over 425,000 vehicles, more than double its total from just 2 years before. Revenue rocketed past $12.8 billion. For a brief moment, Carvana's market cap topped $60 billion, more than Ford, a company that sells 10 times as many vehicles. Investors couldn't get enough. The stock reached $376.83 a share in August, riding the wave of pandemic demand. It wasn't just the numbers that dazzled. Carvana leaned hard into the chaos, buying cars at auction, outbidding local dealers, and expanding its reconditioning centers at breakneck speed. The company borrowed heavily to keep inventory moving, taking on billions in new debt. The goal was clear: dominate the market now, worry about the bill later. Every week brought new headlines about record sales, record prices, and a company that looked untouchable. But the fuel behind the rocket was luck as much as strategy. The used car shortage, the shift to online everything, the flood of easy money, all of it created the perfect tailwind. Carvana rode that wave higher and faster than anyone else. For a while, the business model looked bulletproof. The towers kept rising, the orders kept coming, and the future of car buying seemed to belong to whoever could move the fastest. No one was asking how long the ride could last. Ernest Garcia II didn't just build Carvana, he built a fortress around it. From day one, the Garcia family locked in control with a dual-class share structure. Ordinary investors got 1 vote per share, but the Garcias' stock carried 10. Even at Carvana's lowest point, they held 80% of the company's voting power, a grip so tight it let them call every shot, no matter how the market turned. That kind of control isn't just about boardroom bragging rights. It's about cashing out when the timing is right. As the pandemic boom sent Carvana's stock into the stratosphere, the Garcias moved fast. Between October 2020 and August 2021, Ernest Garcia II and his son, CEO Ernest Garcia III, sold over $2.8 billion in Carvana shares. The elder Garcia's final sale? August 2021, at $357.13 a share, just weeks before the company's stock began its 99% nosedive. While retail investors held on, the family was already out, sitting on billions in liquidated gains. Insiders watched it happen in real time. One former director described it as a closed loop, both of them being primarily owned by the Garcia family. They're going to get a higher multiple on that revenue back within Carvana versus as a standalone. The Garcias didn't just own the company, they owned the rules. With 80% of the vote, they greenlit aggressive expansion, signed off on related party deals, and approved their own stock sales, all without needing a single outside voice. This wasn't accidental. The structure let the family extract value at the top, shielded from any real challenge. Ordinary shareholders could only watch as the Garcias reaped billions, then left everyone else to weather the crash. For the Garcias, unchecked authority wasn't a bug. It was the business model. Drive time wasn't just a distant cousin in Carvana's orbit. It was the family pipeline that kept the numbers looking sharp, even when the real business was sputtering. Former directors described it as the lever nobody talked about. Warranty claims, for example, didn't just flow through a third-party administrator. They looped back to drive time, where, according to a former Carvana leader, the reimbursements were pretty generous. That meant Carvana could book fat warranty income, while drive time quietly absorbed the cost of repairs. The result? Warranty revenue on Carvana's books looked 58% higher than it should have, inflating gross profit by millions. But the pipeline didn't end there. When inventory started piling up, cars bought at peak prices, now losing value fast, Carvana had a backdoor. Instead of slashing prices and taking a loss, they'd pick up the phone. Drive time would take a chunk of those cars off their hands, often at the original book value. One CarMax executive laid it out. You can mark the prices down on current units and lose money, or let drive time take 1,500 of these off your hands at what you own them for. That way, Carvana's inventory numbers stayed clean and losses stayed hidden. Legal filings later revealed just how much these swaps propped up the story. Between 2019 and 2021, Carvana recorded $105 million in wholesale revenue from drive time deals. In the same period, $138 million of so-called other revenue, more than 8% of gross profit, came straight from related party transactions. Pension fund lawsuits called it a sham related party deal, estimating that nearly a fifth of Carvana's third quarter 2021 unit sales growth came from these swaps, and an eye-popping 169% of fourth quarter's growth. Inside Carvana, the rules were clear. Don't ask, don't explain. As one director put it, it's kind of like Fight Club. We don't talk about drive time. The family's grip on both sides of the pipeline let them move profits, inventory, and risk wherever it looked best on paper. For customers, it was invisible. For the Garcias, it was the power to turn financial engineering into headline growth, even as the real business was running out of road. Temporary tags slapped on the bumper, paperwork in limbo, and a car you can't legally drive. That's the reality thousands of Carvana buyers faced when the system broke down. Customers like Nicholas Woods in Philadelphia paid $26,000 for a Kia Sorento. 3 different temporary plates, no title, and then pulled over, arrested, car impounded. His wife lost her job, their credit tanked, and the car, gone. In Ohio, Turner bought a Honda Accord and spent over a year swapping out 45-day tags. When police finally stopped his wife, the officer's words cut through the chaos. "That's on Carvana, not on you. You need to tell them. I need the title to this car. I've had it for over a year. You're giving me continuous 45-day plates, which is illegal." They can't do that. Stories like these aren't rare. A single attorney, Robert Coco, says he's fielded calls from more than 700 Carvana customers in the same bind. Some ticketed, some arrested, others left stranded. Joe Rydell in Maryland waited a year for proper registration, dodging police on back roads, finally giving up and letting the car get repossessed. In Texas, one customer's car was towed because the VIN on the temporary tag didn't match the vehicle. His wife was afraid to drive, worried she'd be accused of stealing her own car. Others watched as their jobs slipped away, unable to commute, forced to accept Uber credits from Carvana as a patch for a problem that never should have happened. Behind the scenes, ex-inspectors and frontline staff saw the rush firsthand. One whistleblower described inspection shortcuts. Most vehicles pass when they're not supposed to. Brake and tire checks that should take 20 minutes get rubber stamped in 5. The goal wasn't safety or accuracy, it was speed. Get the car out the door, sort the paperwork later. But later never came for too many. The result? Families pulled over, ticketed, even jailed for driving cars they thought were theirs, all while Carvana kept promising convenience and control. For the average buyer, the dream of hassle-free car shopping turned into a legal and financial nightmare, one that no vending machine coin could fix. In February 2022, Carvana signed the paperwork on its biggest gamble yet, buying Adesa, America's second-largest wholesale car auction network, for $2.2 billion. The deal closed just weeks before the Federal Reserve hiked interest rates for the first time in years. The timing couldn't have been worse. Carvana didn't have the cash, so they borrowed $3.275 billion in new debt, with the rest earmarked for upgrades across Adesa's 56 sites. On paper, it looked like the ultimate power move: more control over supply, more cars flowing through the pipeline, and a shot at dominating the entire used car ecosystem. But Carvana had never turned a profit. The company was already burning cash, stretched thin by rapid growth and the cost of keeping thousands of cars on hand. Now, they'd added 4,500 new employees, massive overhead, and billions in fresh liabilities, all while interest rates were climbing and the used car market was cooling. Inside the boardroom, executives pitched the Adesa deal as a way to boost reconditioning capacity from 2 million to 3 million cars a year. The reality was starkly different. As soon as the ink dried, the cost of borrowing shot up. The Federal Reserve's rate hikes pushed Carvana's annual interest expense higher, draining liquidity just as demand for used cars started to fade. The Adesa deal, meant to secure Carvana's future, became an anchor. With more debt than ever and a market shifting under their feet, the company was suddenly exposed. There was no margin for error. Every dollar counted, and there was nowhere left to hide. The Adesa acquisition wasn't just a miscalculation. It was the domino that sent Carvana's entire financial structure teetering toward collapse. Illinois Secretary of State investigators walked into Carvana's Oak Brook office in May 2022 and didn't like what they found. Dozens of buyers were driving with expired tags, titles lost somewhere in the system, and temporary registrations issued from states hundreds of miles away. The state moved fast, suspending Carvana's license and launching a criminal probe. For the first time, the company's playbook of rapid growth and paperwork shortcuts collided head-on with state law. Investigators built a case. 57 criminal counts landed on Paul Breaux, Carvana's vice president and general counsel. 27 for failing to transfer vehicle titles. 50 more for improper use of registration permits. Each count tied to a customer left in legal limbo, some ticketed, some threatened with arrest, others stranded without the car they'd paid for. Illinois wasn't alone. Michigan's Department of State called Carvana an imminent threat to the public, suspending its dealer license after 127 documented violations, even employees admitting they'd destroyed title applications for cars already sold. Regulators in North Carolina, Florida, and Texas piled on, issuing fines, suspensions, and threats of criminal action. In Pennsylvania, a class action lawsuit accused Carvana of turning everyday drivers into lawbreakers, with attorney Robert Coco stating, "People have been put in jail, literally, and have had to post a bond to get out." State after state, the hammer came down. Operations ground to a halt. News headlines blared about suspended licenses and criminal charges. For Carvana, the era of unchecked expansion was over. Regulators had drawn the line: fix the mess or get out. The message was clear: break the rules, pay the price. Suddenly, the fire sale deals weren't a marketing ploy. They were the cost of survival. Apollo Global Management stepped in with a lifeline. In July 2023, Carvana's creditors agreed to swap $5.7 billion in unsecured debt for new loans, backed by the company's own real estate and assets. Bondholders took a 24-cent haircut on the dollar, but secured their claims with the Adesa auction sites and Carvana's core infrastructure. The deal slashed over $1.2 billion from Carvana's debt pile and cut annual interest expenses by $430 million for 2 years. But the fine print told a different story. Cash interest payments would ramp up again starting in 2025, and every dollar mattered. That's when the fire sale began. With pressure to generate cash, Carvana started listing thousands of cars at prices that raised eyebrows across the industry. A 2012 Acura MDX dropped from $26,995 to $19,590 in less than a month. Some models landed below book value, moving faster than local dealers could match. One insider described it as turning iron into oxygen. The goal wasn't margin, it was movement. Every car off the lot meant more liquidity, more breathing room, and one less headache on the balance sheet. For bargain hunters, it's a gold rush. But for Carvana, these deals aren't a marketing stunt. They're a byproduct of survival. The company's new debt is now tied to real assets. If cash runs dry, creditors can claim the keys. So every underpriced listing is a calculated risk, a bet that fast turnover is worth more than holding out for profit. As one former manager put it, "We're not selling cars, we're buying time." At its peak in August 2020, 2021, Carvana's market value soared past $60 billion, surpassing Ford's. Yet within 18 months, the company's stock crashed by over 99%, and Carvana faced 57 criminal counts across multiple states for title delays and registration failures. Whistleblower documents confirmed that the Garcia family maintained 80% voting control while liquidating $2.8 billion in shares. Despite state bans and customers being arrested over invalid tags, the family's internal pipeline between Carvana and Drive Time remained largely shielded from outside scrutiny. Today, Carvana's fire sale prices are a direct result of the Apollo debt rescue and asset-backed debt swaps, offering bargains that come with risk. Many internal communications and the full details of the Drive Time relationship remain undisclosed. As of now, Carvana continues to operate, reshaped but not erased. The evidence shows how unchecked power and rapid growth left lasting damage, and how the real cost of disruption is still being paid by buyers, sellers, and the entire industry.